Hello and welcome back to the She Who Dares Wins podcast. My guest today is Emma. Emma, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited.
So excited to have you on. So I've been stalking you for
Oh
ages.
no. Was that you?
It was. We shouldn't talk about it. Okay, so tell me how you've dared and won.
You see, I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I have been so stressed.
Oh no, people do this. Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm going like, what have I dared and won? But like, there's been so much, but I don't think I can go like, I've done this and this has happened. But I think like, and obviously we'll probably talk about lots of this, but I think over the years, many years, I think I've kind of challenged the stereotypes that might normally stop people from succeeding, or people might think that they can't succeed because of school, mental health, all of those things. And what I've done is used all of that, and I think one, created a legacy for myself and my daughter that's helped other people, connects back into nature. So I think I've dared to challenge that, and the payoff has been that I've been able to create something for the future for
You definitely
us.
have. So let's get into that then. So, because I know you told me briefly on the way here, because you've flown over, that you had a job working for Mars, and then what's the journey been like to becoming the bee expert?
And there'll be some people who got you're not a bee expert.
If I say it, it's
true.
real.
So do you know what? It's a funny thing because there's been so many jobs. Are we talking jobs here, like vocational wise?
Take me through a bit of.
Okay, so I left school with no GCSEs, not one, and I was 16 and pregnant, and I remember whenever Brooke was born. I mean, if Teen Mum had have existed then, I think I would have got a part. So Brooke was born, and Brooke's dad, he was an apprentice joiner, and he earned £45 a week. Wow. That was all we had. And I was too young to get like benefits or whatever because I wasn't like 18. I'm not sure. We didn't have any money basically. So mum and dad, if it wasn't for my mum and dad, let me tell you. So the first job I ever had was working for, I don't want to say the name because this is like a really bad job, but it was a kitchen company that was based in Belfast, and it was telesales. And in those days, it was literally desks of people smoking, because you were allowed to smoke in the workplace then. We all smoked. Everybody smoked. So it was a room of 30 people, all smoking, all on telephones, you know, like proper telephones. And what we had to do, this is a part-time job, because I could only work part-time because Brooke was a baby, but we had to phone people up out of the phone book.
People won't know. Some generations won't know. Look up phone book.
Yeah, out of the BT phone book, and pick it. You got like a letter, so just say it was Thompson. So you phoned all the Thompsons, and you said, "Hello, my name is Emma, and I'm from Kitchens, and I just want to let you know that you've won a free kitchen. And in order for you to qualify for the free kitchen, we need to send our rep out to you to measure up."
Oh, red flag.
Yeah. So I used to send people to people's houses, and I don't know what happened then. That was only my job, but I've heard, because they were on a TV program, that the reps wouldn't then leave until the person had then, signed up to buy a kitchen. So that was my first job.
I love how you also just skipped over the fact that you were becoming a mom at 16.
Yeah.
Major.
That was weird.
That's a major deal.
Oh, that was major.
Yeah.
It was, especially, I lived in a small village, and in 1996, it's weird because there was teen mums, there's always been teen mums. It still wasn't like, it was a little bit like, did you hear about her? She's pregnant. It probably is a little bit like that now, I don't know, but it definitely, I mean, there was probably 2 teen mums in the village, and I was one of them. But even whenever I was in the hospital with Brooke, she was in the neonatal unit, and, even the treatment from the nurses, not all of them, but just that particular unit, they weren't, like, they didn't let me, like, holder or feeder or any of those things. And I kind of wasn't given any time with her because I think they thought, well, she's a teen mum, she doesn't really know what she's doing.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, that was, but you know what, like now I'm 46 and Brooke's 28, and like, as I said to you, she's always been the responsible adult. Even whenever she was 3, she probably had more wit than I did. But if it wasn't for mum and dad, they really did step up, and they helped. They stepped in and showed me what I had to do, and if I wasn't able to do it, they did it, and they were great. And they're still very much a massive part of, like, sort of second parents to Brooke. So
amazing.
yeah, lucky.
So what after this ordeal
the
of
kitchens.
the kitchens?
Well, then I went to work for Auto Trader, and I was selling adverts in the magazine. And do you know, it's funny because I remember at this point it was the Auto Trader magazine, and it came out every Thursday.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was sacred. So people would like, do you work for Auto Trader? Can you get me a magazine on a Wednesday night? Like, no, I can't. A sackable offence. People would have paid like hundreds of pounds to get the Auto Trader on a Wednesday.
Just to get the car
they
deal.
Get the car first. Then I remember, so I was doing telesales for them. So just phoning up people that were in the, rival magazines and wanting to see if they would advertise with Auto Trader. And I remember one day a girl came in, and she wasn't like the rest of us, she was new, and I said, what are you here for? And she was like, I'm going to be their online magazine. And I was like, God, that job's not going to last very long. Online.
And
Who's
the
going to
internet.
do online? And now the magazine's completely gone. Like, and there's not even a bit of paper, it's all online. But at the time I was like, oh, I'd be, working on your CV if I was, it's not going to go very far. Online magazine. Oh my goodness. What a way the world has changed. So after Auto Trader, then I did, while I was working in the Auto Trader, I did an MVQ in beauty therapy. Mm-hmm. So that has stood me, so sales has stood me in good stead for what I do now. Beauty therapy and hairdressing, but more so the beauty therapy, I kind of did for a few years, let that slip. But a lot of the stuff I learned then, I'm still able to talk about some of those things whenever I'm talking to my clients or my customers about their skin now. So after beauty therapy and hairdressing, then I went to work in the Halifax call centre. Ditched beauty therapy and hairdressing because I was a bit of a partier.
Okay.
And they wanted me to work on Saturdays.
Yes.
Other things, I wasn't even home. Again, thank goodness for Liz and David looking after Brooke. I wasn't working on Saturdays. So I kind of ditched the hairdressing and beauty therapy. And for many years, I really regretted that because it was a way to let out the creative side. I didn't even think I had a creative side at that point, but I knew that I'd kind of missed it whenever I left it, but never went back. So I went to work for the Halifax call centre. But at that point, I really was, I suppose, what I know now as struggling with mental health. I didn't realise I had a mental health issue then. I think I was just sort of spiralling, and I didn't know what was the matter with me. And so those weren't very good times. But I stayed in Halifax for about a year. I think I might have got asked not to come back, kind of thing, with the Halifax. Where did I go after that? So then I went to work for Auto Bar and sold vending machines. So I went back into sales, and that was my first. So I went for an interview, and I'm still in contact with this guy now. Thank you, Martin. I went for an interview for like an admin position. Mm-hmm. I was kind of coasting. I was like earning not very much money, single parent kind of vibe. So I was really struggling, and I went for a job interview for an admin job in Auto Bar. They're a vending machine company. I'm not sure if they're still called that. And the guy that was the MD, Martin Sheridan, said, I don't think you're right for admin. And I was like, oh, cheeky. And he goes, I'd like you to be in our sales team. So he gave me a sales job with a company car. And at that point, like, what it wouldn't seem like a lot of money now, but then it was like, I've got a company car, I might have been like 20 grand a year. I felt like I'd won the lottery. So I sold vending machines for a few years, but it was really hard because Martin made you had to knock the doors. You had to physically go and speak to 100 businesses every week. Wow. And bring back proof of compliment slips with the managing director's name. So you were literally wandering around, these kind of business estates looking, what's the managing director's name? Can I have a compliment slip? So that was Auto bar. I always get that mixed up with Auto Trader. And then I had a few other sales jobs. I've sold Southeast Asian food. I've sold Mars chocolate. Love that job. They made me redundant. Not bitter at all, but haven't ate a Mars bar since. Yeah, I'm a Cadbury's girl. That's all I'm saying.
See, I grew up 5 minutes from Cadbury's, and a lot of my family worked for Cadbury's, and I won't touch Cadbury's because they sold craft.
Yes,
So now
they
the
did. They
American
sold
end,
out.
and I'm like, ugh. But
Yeah.
I get you with the chocolate war when you're
Mondelez,
passionate
something now,
about
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Oh, Mars chocolate was the best job. Like I actually used to think to myself, who on earth is doing the work? Because I'm not doing anything here. Like it's just,
Because it's an established brand.
yeah. I used to just go around Tesco's, and I mean, honestly, and I'm still in contact with some of my old manager. He might watch this. I used to go around Tesco's with 3 sweets and just give them to the stock control manager, and I would like, Dave, can I have like, a couple of different hods? So like, yeah, you can have whatever you want. Cool. And leave and go to the next Tesco's and do exactly the same thing. And once a month I would go into to Tesco's head office and speak to the buyer and talk about his kids' football team and give him a load of free chocolate. And
Yeah,
I
'cause
would
they're
get
not
all
gonna
these
stop.
extra stuff. I didn't have to do anything, which was amazing until they make you redundant. And then you're like, oh no, like, because you would never get that again. I honestly thought, like, because Northern Ireland, you don't have those. I mean, there was very few people in Northern Ireland that actually worked for Mars Chocolate directly. And there's not a lot of opportunity. There probably is more now, but there wasn't then. There wasn't the big brands, the big massive blue chip companies don't really. They kind of like give somebody Northern Ireland as part of their territory, but they don't have people specifically there. So I knew that I would never find that again, and I felt like I'd been marched to the top of the mountain and shown what I could have, and then told to get the fuck back down again. You're gonna live down there. Go back to where you're from. So, but all of those jobs that I've had have taught me different things. I then went to work for a cake company, Cobb's, a Scottish cake company, and again, I'm still friends with my old manager. And that showed me, we did a lot of trade shows, and we had to decorate stands and present our products in the nicest way, and liaise with our the food companies that we'd work with and stuff like that. So I learned a lot from that job in terms of what make things like sort of I learned a lot about impulse and impulsive products and category working for Mars. And I learned how to execute that whenever I went to work for Cobb's. And then my last job before I quit completely to work for myself was with a makeup company. So I worked for a company that had the contract for Coty. So I sold Rimmel and things like that.
So I love how each one of your jobs, whilst it might look like this different array of, it's a perfect
It is.
sales, beauty, and then where do the bees come in?
So I'd always struggled with my skin, and kind of the two pivotal moments, sort of beekeeping and making skincare, have both come off the back of my skin issues. So I had really bad acne, and it was in a time people are like, where's the photographs? But it was in a time whenever if you had acne, you didn't take photographs of yourself.
Yeah, and plus, who wants to see? Who is trying to?
But
prove
now they do. They're like it's because it's so, and it's good that girls and boys or whatever are struggling with their skin. There's a level of it's okay. I do too. But back then, like, it wasn't. It was like you wouldn't be taking a photograph of your skin and post it
No,
on Facebook.
I had bad skin, and it's horrible when you're a teenager. I had this one spot, and it would just come every 6 months, and it was horrific, just on my nose. In fact, I'm quite heavily scarred from it now, and it would flare up, and I never wanted to go to school when that came. And then my brother had really bad facial acne on the side, and I feel like you just put up with it back then.
You did.
There was Roaccutane, which everyone put
yeah.
the fear of God into you that you were going to commit
Give you mental health.
suicide.
Yeah.
The reality is
Yeah.
you've already
you were
got...
already on the edge.
like,
And
what
they give you
else?
some Roaccutane.
It's crazy, isn't it? Just give it. I'll take it. So yeah, I understand.
So I didn't, I was always hiding it, but I was always very conscious of it. My very first job, if we're going to go way back, was a paper round that I got whenever I was like in high school. And I remember earning like £5 a week for doing the paper round all week. And the first thing I ever bought was a spot treatment. So it was like the first thing I ever bought whenever I earned money was like I don't know, it wasn't even Clearasil, it was something else back then.
Out of an advert at the back of the...
Oh yeah,
and you could send for stuff.
Yeah. And I actually took an allergic reaction to it. So not only did it, like, it made my whole face swell up. So I was on this mission. So again, I was a bit skint. I was a single mom. I was trying to kind of sort my skin out without talking about it to anybody. And I'd always been like told to buy this brand or get that treatment or this will make it so much better. And even now, whenever I talk to young people that are struggling with their skin in my shop, I'll be like, I'm very careful. I can pretty much say, yes, we can definitely help you, but I am not going to promise you the world. It may not work and it may take a long time. But generally it doesn't, but I'm always very careful because I used to get up every morning and go, before I got to the mirror, is today going to be the day that I'm going to look in the mirror and it's all going to be gone? And it never was.
Yeah.
Well, it was. It actually did, but we'll get to that. But so what happened was somebody said to me, have you ever thought about healing your gut, about your gut health? And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? So hyperfocus, slightly mentally insane, ADHD brain was like, oh, gut health. So I went down the rabbit hole and I started to not only eat foods that were high in probiotics and live bacteria, but I started making kombucha and kefir, and I started making my own yogurt, and I started to basically turned my whole utility room into like bug central. Right? I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to feed my sprouts that I was sprouting in a sieve and changing my kefir grains. It was crazy. Like, I was addicted to live bacteria. I mean, I've been addicted to a lot of things, but live bacteria is definitely one of them. And so my skin started to heal a little bit. Anyway, in my research, I read that honey, whenever it's raw, is full of live bacteria, full of probiotics. So I ordered some honey. I think it came from like the Highlands or something, because I was aware that the honey in the supermarket isn't honey in the supermarket isn't honey, guys. It's not honey.
You educated me about this. We'll come on to this, but I took out the honey that was in,
and did it,
and I threw it in the bin because my husband was like, "Why you don't throw it?" And now, thanks to you, I spend an insane amount of money.
Oh God, yeah, it's so expensive. Cheaper getting bees.
I think the last one I bought, because I was like, I've got to rein it in, I could watch the pennies, was the 100. But I did have the 500. Yeah, I did have the 500 from New Zealand. And I was like, I said to the woman at Holland & Barrett, is this liquid gold? Yeah. And she was like, well, kind of. But we'll come on to honey.
Come on that, because I think you might be wasting your money.
Okay, good.
we will talk about that. So anyway, I read that honey was probiotic, so I bought some honey. And genuinely, so if this was my settee in Ballygowan, this would be my window, this is my settee, and I was eating the honey. And I took a spoonful of it. It had just arrived on the doorstep whenever I came home from work. The honey was there. Got a spoon, ate the honey, went onto my phone and went, and I shit you not, like, this is 10 years ago, so I was 36, okay? Grown-ass woman. How is honey made? I kind of knew it came from a bee. I really wasn't sure of the story. How is honey made? So, I mean, I wouldn't have got anywhere in life if I didn't have that hyper-focus. I call it a Brian because I'm also dyslexic, but my hyper-focused Brian, I wouldn't have got, because I've needed that. So I went down, I was already down the gut bacteria rabbit hole. I then transferred down to the honey rabbit hole, and I started to research about bees, right? And really random, because I'd never, I loved caterpillars as a kid. We had nasturtiums, and I was always collecting caterpillars, and my mum was saying, that's not very kind, Emma, let them go, don't keep them in the jam jars, leave them alone. So always interested in insects, but never specifically bees. So I became really interested in bees. And how intelligent they were, and I was just reading all these facts at sort of Wikipedia that led to a book, that led to like 3 or 4 different books about bees and beekeeping. So then I decided that I'm going to get a beehive. So so I said to my mum and dad, my dad was still working at the time, he was about to retire, because people generally think that because my dad's with me at the bees, that it's my dad has been the beekeeper and I've kind of followed in his footsteps.
Oh, that natural, yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. I got it in construction. Like, was your dad in construction?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't even own a hammer.
Your granddad?
Yes,
your uncle?
somebody. You did it on your own?
It's your own idea. So I remember going to my mum and dad's house and saying, like, I'm going to get a beehive. And I remember my dad going, why?
It's not the usual thing.
Random. But that changed my life. So yes, that's how I got into beekeeping. I decided that I was going to do the Beekeeping Association's Introduction to Beekeeping course. And I did that the next following autumn.
How long's that course?
It kind of runs from the autumn until spring.
Okay.
So like the off season for bees.
And does that make you an official, the off season for bees? I remember them thinking, we can fit you in
Yeah.
now.
Does it make you an official beekeeper? Kind of gives you a certificate to say that you know what? So you don't need to do the course to become a beekeeper. But bees, it's not easy.
No.
And bees need the human that is in charge, not in charge, they're in charge, but the human that's kind of looking after, they need them to know certain things, to be able to read the hive. It doesn't happen, it's like learning how to drive, and you get your R plates. Do you get R plates over here?
Yeah, L plates, yeah.
Yeah, so you get your L plates, and then you pass your test and your R plates, and you're allowed to go on the motorway, but you don't really have a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
It's beekeeping's like that, but there's a lot of things that you need to know first. So it's definitely, if you're going to spend the money and buy the suit and get all the gear, it really is a good idea to do the course first. And I did get asked that question a lot. So I did the course, and then I got my first nucleus colony, which is a baby colony, in the spring. And then, that was 10 years ago. And it was only a few years after that then I began making stuff.
Wow. So it wasn't like a fleet in the pan kind of flash in the pan, fleet in the pan, flash in the pan, pan.
Like all of the other things.
Yeah.
No, I knew, and I think there's been a few times in life, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, where you just know something, a life moment is happening. I just knew that it was for me. I knew that I was doing the thing, and I'd never experienced that on a vocational level before. I remember a lady that I know well, and she worked for a recruitment company, and phoning me up and going, Emma, we've got this. Like, I just started beekeeping. I was still working full time, and I was working full time for a long time, even whenever I started my business. But I remember her phoning me up and going, Emma, we've got this job. Would you be interested? I think it was she wanted me to come and work for her. And I'd say, like, no, like something really special's happening, and I just really want to focus on that. I don't know where the beekeeping's going to take me, but I feel like it's something really, really special. So I don't want to take on anything new. I just want to kind of hone into what I'm doing. Yeah. It might have been just an excuse because I want to come to work for it. But I remember saying it. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if you believe in the universe or whatever, or God. I don't know where I stand on the whole thing, but I do believe that I couldn't have avoided this if I'd tried. Because this what I'm doing now was definitely meant to be.
So you got the beehive, you were learning about bees, and then obviously producing your own honey. How did that lead into skincare? So,
I mean, I think that one of the biggest myths about beekeeping is that you're kind of, once you get bees, you're kind of coming down with honey and wax. Because that isn't really, it doesn't, it's kind of, especially in our climate, it's difficult. Like, it's difficult, we only get 1 or 2 good months, if you're lucky, in the summertime where there's a high nectar flow and the weather's good enough. If it rains in July, your kind of honey prospects for that year go down the tube, and it's been a very wet July the last few years. So honey's a funny thing. So Dad retired. And so whenever I finished my beekeeping, he came to the Beekeeping Association course with me.
Oh, he did?
He didn't get a certificate, though. He didn't do the exam at the end. So he retired around that same time. So whenever we were going to the bees, we were going together. And I still had really bad skin. You know, it had kind of improved a little bit with the gut health and all of those things, but I was still having breakouts. It was around that time that I was then diagnosed with bipolar disorder and put on my antipsychotic tablets, which caused me a massive breakout.
Right. Okay.
So my skin wasn't great, but it was a little bit better. And then I went on to my tablets, my quetiapine, and I got this massive breakout in and around my chin. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't want to go back here again. Like, I know it's only an aesthetic thing, and there'll be lots of people listening to this that are struggling too. And if you are, you can get in touch. So I don't want it to make it out to be like spots is a really bad thing. It's not, but it kind of took me back to, I don't want to go back there again. I've come so far. So I had a bit of honey because I was in beekeeping a few years. My first year or two, we didn't really get very much. In fact, I remember Dad and I counting up the amount of money we spent at beekeeping and the amount of honey we got, and we kind of come to a figure it probably cost us £50 a jar to actually get our first couple of honey harvests. But this particular year we had a little bit of honey, we jarred it up because we had a little bit more than we'd had the years before. So I decided then, well, and because I knew a bit about honey, and I knew that it was like really, really good for your gut, it was an anti-inflammatory, it was used in medicine to heal and pull out infection. It's been used for hundreds of years in like poultices and things like that. Even in veterinary, it's used in horses to fix wounds and things. So I knew that honey was amazing. So I thought, well, if I've got this breakout on my face and I've got this honey, well then surely if I put the honey on my face, then that's going to help. So I had a few ingredients in the cupboard, and very weirdly, because I'd never made any skincare before in my life, and this is the bit that I find the most surprising out of everything, I made this little balm, which initially I called my magic green balm, but you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to...
False advertising.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say anything's magic. So I made this balm, this green balm. I had some avocado oil, I had a little bit of castor oil because I was, using it on my skin, whatever. And I had my honey and I had some beeswax, and I made this balm up, and I put it on my skin every night going to bed. And honestly, in a week, I had a glow, and my skin was dewy, and my spots had started to go away. And I have never looked back since. And it's now called the Beekeeper's Intense Skin Balm, and it's still our #1 bestseller. And it's still, the surprising thing is, it's basically still the same recipe apart from a few other wee bits and pieces
Of
to
that
make it.
first.
Of that first thing. How on earth did I come up with that? I have no idea, because I have no background in, like, I might have made a cake. I like to make things like with like baking muffins and stuff, but I had no background in anything to do with. I just believe that there's like something that's kind of going, come this way,
Emma. You can't ignore it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I made the Beekeeper's Intense Skin Balm, but you're not allowed to just make things and sell them. I didn't know that. You have to have them cosmetically certified. You have to have them correctly labeled. You have to have them notified on the portals. You have to have a registered business. Like, there's loads of hoops to jump through, and I didn't know that, but somebody then told me, look, that's wonderful that you've made this, but if you want to sell it properly, you're going to have to make sure you adhere to all of the cosmetic regulations. That scared the crap out of me, because it was, a lot to do with reading legislation. I would rather stick hot pins in my eyes than read rules. I just can't do it. But anyway, so I got it certified in the end, and the business started really off the back of that, but it was just really selling stuff on Facebook initially.
But the fact that you had developed a product for yourself, I think that's really important with a business, isn't it? It starts from something that served your need, and then you just know other people.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but sell it because I was a sales rep. It was like, oh my goodness, like I made this balm and it's amazing and it contains these products and honey's great, and I was making all of these medical claims because I didn't have a clue, like it's anti-inflammatory, it's all of these, it's some magic green cream, it's so illegal, but people were like, can I buy it, will you sell me some? And initially I was like, yeah, of course, make you some and sell it. And what I then did is, in order to certify that, I started making lip balms because I knew that they would sell faster. So I made some lip balms and got those certified. And then off the sales of the lip balms that I used to put in the garage in the local filling station and a few different places and a local health food shop. And off the profits that I got from that, then I saved the money up to certify the skin balm.
Did you have to scale the bees?
Well, we were sitting probably at around 4 or 5 hives then anyway. And we're always conscious of, we need to have a certain amount of honey and a certain amount of wax, but it goes further than you would think. So not really. Certainly not in the early days. We didn't need to do. You just need to render it, which takes time. And we're always constantly thinking of what's the best way to render to get the most wax and things like that. But no, we didn't have to really. It was there.
What's the bees are fascinating. I think there's a whole episode in itself
incredible.
just on bees. But what was a big eye opener for you? Stepping into that world. I know you said that it's quite male dominated. There's quite opinionated. There's quite a lot of opinionated beekeepers.
There is. There's some wonderful beekeepers who have, I would say, even mentored me, definitely. But yeah, it's very. I was very shocked. I thought it was going to be like. I know it's like, I don't want to say old men because that's not fair, but yeah, I thought it was going to be like, just loads of like
it's not a very
old men,
true.
old men, kind of, but there's a certain prescribed way that the association, should I say the name of this?
The association.
The association.
Is it quite an old school
yes.
thing that hasn't really been brought into this?
Yeah, so I think there's methods of beekeeping that I don't like. And the fact that, so one of them would be that in order to control your queen, you should cut half her wing off. Because what that does is, whenever the swarming is natural. Swarming is like, oh my goodness, I've got a swarm. I get that all summer long, drives me insane. I'm like, you haven't got a swarm. Your ivy bush is just a nectar flow and you've got lots of bees eating the nectar. That's all it is. Calm down, Barbara, calm down. Right. But the bees swarm. Honeybees, only honeybees swarm. Wasps, bumblebees, solitary bees, they don't swarm. Only honeybees swarm, and they swarm in the summertime. And a swarm it's like a seed falling from a plant. So you've got one colony and one queen, right? And that colony will say, okay, so they grow in numbers. Honeybees grow in numbers in the summer. The colony gets bigger, and then in the autumn time, it retracts. So in the summertime, whenever the colony gets bigger, they think, okay, right, well, what we will do is, and it's a democracy, they all have a conversation, they agree themselves, like they're so intelligent. There's a whole book about the honeybee democracy. It's very, very interesting. If you're interested, it's written by a guy, I think it's called Tom Seeley. But basically, if honeybees could rule the world, we wouldn't have these issues that we have. So they have a conversation and they're like, right, okay, well, some of us are going to leave. So what they do then, before they leave, is they get a larva, they get a larva that's 1 day old, around that age. A female larva, because most of the bees are female. The drones are men, but the drones are only there in the hive in the summer because they're just summer, sort of late spring to early autumn, because they're only used for mating up in the mating areas with other queens. They haven't got any other job, and after that they're culled and chucked out if they haven't already died. Yeah. So
it's just a load of badass women ruling the roost.
It is. And the worker bees are in charge. The queen's not in charge. She just does what they say.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around. What a massive misconception.
Oh, well, yeah. So we'll go down the bee rabbit hole, because it is really fun. Yeah. It's fun. So for swarming, so what they then do is say, okay, so some of us are going to leave. There's not enough room, and we're going to create a new colony. And it's like nature's way of making sure, just like a sunflower seed falling from a sunflower plant, if that even happens, I don't know. But just like that ensures a new plant with more seeds. Then, and if that hive separates, then that ensures another colony which will separate and separate and separate. And some colonies can separate a few different, like maybe 3 times in the summer. But what they do first is they get a larva, at a certain age, around 3 days old, a female larva, and they will feed that larva a higher concentration of royal jelly, and that turns that larva that would normally have been a worker bee, that will turn her into a queen bee instead, which is completely genetically different, and it's really only the royal jelly and all of the substances that are within that make that change. So whenever they go to swarm, they've got the old queen, and they've got a new queen in a queen cell that hasn't hatched yet. And so the portion that are swarming, the portion that have decided that they're going to go, they will take the old queen with them, and they will go and hang out in a location for a couple of hours while they find somewhere new to live. So if the beekeeper cuts off the queen's wing, then they can't really go very far. So they can't.
So you get to keep the hive.
So you get to keep the swarm. So the swarm doesn't leave. In principle, it's a great idea, but I just don't like the fact that you have to cut half a wing off. So the beekeeper will come back, and there's things you can do to swarm control. So you can identify the fact that the colony looks swarmy, and you can maybe do a chic swarm, like maybe an artificial swarm, where you can make the swarm happen in your own setting. So you can like get take the queen and move half the bees into another box, and like, you know, put the queen into that box and make that colony think that they've swarmed whenever they haven't, and leave behind the old queen, leave behind the new queen cell. So anyway, I don't really do that often, but there's things that you can do to swarm control. So, but if a hive wants to swarm, if a colony wants to swarm, they're probably going to swarm. It's very difficult to get them to stop swarming. So the beekeeper cuts off half their wing, and then that means that then the queen won't be able to fly. She'll just go zzz, and the colony will never leave her. So they'll be able to keep that swarm. But I was quite vocal from the very start that I didn't like the thought of that. So I don't clip my queens. And that in itself, in some circles, didn't really go down very well with the beekeeping. I was quite vocal about it, I think, and I think that's kind of the mistake I made.
But if they were in the wild, they wouldn't be clipped, would they?
No.
So you're just really doing something that's quite ethical for bees.
Yeah. I think, that is the problem. I called myself an ethical beekeeper.
And so they see it as shame on them because they don't, because they do the traditional methods.
So I don't even like to mark my queens, so I don't like to put a spot on their back.
Oh, so they're marked to...
But I've kind of retracted on that a little bit, but yeah, because they're marked depending on the year. So there's different colours for different years. So it'll be...
What kind of mark is it? I'm thinking a felt tip pen, but it's not.
It's kind of like a felt tip pen, but it's like a permanent chalk almost. And I can't remember what year we're in. I don't know what 2025 is. I haven't looked it up. But like, 1, 3, and 5 will be a certain colour. So there'll be all these, and I think there's 5 or 6 different colours. And so whenever you go into the hive and see the queen with a yellow dot, you'll know. Because we had a blue queen. I think it was blue. We had a blue queen. I think we still had her last year. And like she was like 4 years old or 5 years old, which is pretty old for a queen.
Oh, is it?
Because queens can live like about 7 years, but like they generally don't. They probably live about 2 or 3 or sometimes just even 1. But the other thing that I didn't like, and I was vocal about, was that if a colony is like a little bit angry, you can have like an angry hive. And it generally happens because if the native Irish black bee breeds with like the buckfast bee, so if beekeepers in Northern Ireland import bees in, and there's lots of buckfast bees, if the drones mate with their queens or vice versa, then you can get like a hybridized hive, which is quite productive but pretty angry. And we've got a lot of those. So there's hives that you just can't, like, it's very difficult to work with. But we just kind of, sometimes you'll open a hive and they'll all come out and just go woof and start stinging you. Like, it's not like
So they're angry for...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they are. And like Dad and I have walked away. Like, I've had maybe 20 stings at my arms sometimes.
Even with the full beekeep?
Oh, the bee suit isn't sting proof. Well, there is some sting-proof bee suits out there, but typically, like the standard bee suit that most people wear isn't sting. It's just a boiler suit.
Well, what the
And
fuck?
the bees. I know. So you would have to then dress underneath it to be sting-proof. So
what's it essentially for then? Just another layer to protect?
The most important bit is the hood to protect your eyes. So that. The hood, as long as it's not blowing in your face, will protect you. As long as you've got it zipped up properly, that's always the key. Dad and I aren't great with that. We're not great with the old health and safety. We've had that many bees in our hoods, I had a whole colony basically in my hair one day, and I was going to jump into a lake, but that's another
I'm getting flashbacks of My Girl. Have you seen that film? Where?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, where it's Macaulay Culkin,
Yes.
isn't it? Where he dies from a bee sting.
Yeah.
So I guess you're not allergic to.
No, but there is beekeepers out there that are, but I think that's just mad. I mean, the amount of times, the amount of times that we get stung in a city, we would get stung every single time we're at the hives. Absolutely.
Right.
That there is beekeepers I've heard out there that have got anaphylaxis reaction, and I don't.
Why would you do?
I just don't understand it because we get stung. So the bee suit, you would have to have something underneath it that's kind of pretty thick to stop it from stinging. I don't do that. I'll just go down in my t-shirt and, generally a normal hive probably won't sting unless it's thundery or the bees kind of pick up in the weather before we even see the weather. So if they feel it's thundery, bees can get very aggressive. Or if you're wearing black, they don't like black. They don't like, because apparently it's like looking into the eyes of a predator. So now if you're in the street and you're wearing black, that's absolutely fine because you're not at the hive. But if you're in the hive, even with a phone or this or a tripod that's black, it'll be covered in bees. They'll just be attacking it.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they don't like that. So
I'm learning how not to piss a bee off.
Don't want to piss them off. But so what were we talking about?
I was so into bees. We were talking about the bees.
We were talking. Oh yes. So the beekeepers, right? So if you've got an angry colony, this is the prescribed method of beekeeping.
Okay.
If you've got an angry colony, and I have read this recently, so it's not just an old-fashioned in an old book somewhere. It said this is what they say you should do. You should go to that colony, and I know if there's beekeepers going to listen to this, and they're going to go, she's hearing me talk, there's a reason
I'll take
for
them.
that.
You message me.
Right, I'll just message you, right? So you will go into that colony, and you will find the queen and kill her.
I was going to say, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
But
I just can't do it.
that's to start a new one.
That is because it'll be her genetics. Because whenever a queen mates up in the mating queen, the drone congregation area in the sky, every area has got a drone congregation area, and the drones will know where it is. The newly hatched drones, they will know where it is, and the newly hatched queens will know where it is, and they'll all meet up there. And the queen doesn't mate with her own drones because they're her genetic copy. The queen mates with drones from other colonies. They all go up to the drone mating area, and she'll mate. And if she does mate with her own drone accidentally, those eggs will be identified in the hive and withdrawn from the cells and thrown away. I think they might even eat them. They will know that they're not genetically viable, and they will remove them. Yeah, it's crazy. So whenever the queen mates, she mates.
So they leave the hive. Mm-hmm. They go up in the sky. Mm-hmm. They find another.
The new queen, whenever she hatches from the cell within the first 2 weeks, usually this happens. Yeah. So she'll go up to the sky.
So she's only 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
And she's got to go and reproduce.
She will mate for life. She'll do a few different mating flights, and she'll mate with maybe 10, 15 drones who all die after the deed is done in the air. They kind of explode. Literally.
I'm sorry, but bees have it sorted.
They do, right? They do. So they go up, and then the queen mates with the drones, right? Uh-huh. And that gives her enough fertilized eggs after she's done her mating flights and comes back to the hive. She doesn't leave again. That's also vegans think that you keep the queen in there. You don't let her out. She can leave if she wants. She just won't leave. The queen doesn't leave unless she is going on a swarm, like we talked before.
Yeah.
So she'll mate for life, and that'll give her enough eggs in her body. I think it's called spermatheca or something like that. I was trying to think of the name. To lay 2,000 eggs a day for the rest of her life.
She's busy.
Right, but she can also lay non-fertilized eggs. So the fertilized eggs will be the worker bees, the females, that will be genetically half hers and half the drone.
Right.
Right? The angry drone, the buckfast drone, and right? So you get angry bees, right? The drones are non-fertilized, so they're just a genetic copy of the mum, only in male form. So they come from an unfertilized egg. So if you have an angry hive, it'll be a genetic thing. So you either have to work with them and just kind of let them run their course and try your hardest, or what you'd be taught to do would be to find the queen and crush her. And that will force the colony to and requeen. So you'd requeen with a queen from another colony.
So do you have to take the queen from the other colony, or will they?
They probably, what I would do, there's a few different ways. You could take a queen from another colony, or you could order a queen in the post, or you could or you could get one from your mate if you've got any friends. But if you're like me, you haven't got any beekeeping friends to ask.
And you literally, And if you get a queen and put her into an old colony as such that's already established, she's immediately accepted.
No, she's not, right? So that's a really good question. And what you could also do is get a frame from another colony of eggs and just slot it into that hive, and then they will draw a queen cell because they'll be queenless. There'll be no queen pheromone, so they'll automatically go into queen rearing mode and make a queen from the egg, like I mentioned before. But that's such a good question. So if you buy a queen, or you put a queen in from another colony, you have to put her in a cage because they have to get used to the pheromone. The new pheromone of that queen that they won't be used to, if you were just to put her in straight away, I think they call it running her in dry, right? If you were to run her in dry, they'll just kill her because they will see her as an intruder. But if you put her into a little cage, little yellow cage, with a little bit of fondant, you know the icing you get on top of the buns?
Yeah.
On top, and slot her in, then over the course of a couple of days, they will release that fondant, by which time they'll be used to her pheromone and they'll accept her.
So you've got to put a queen in with a bit of a sweet treat.
Yeah. And plug her in with she's plugged in with the sweetness.
So once they've taken that, then her pheromones are... Oh my God, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's what you do. Not even then, sometimes they can, I started to queen rear. I didn't do it last year because there was stuff happened last year and we just kind of got sidetracked because it's a real endeavor. But the year before I started grafting the eggs, because you can do that. You can force a colony to rear queens by a process known as grafting and queen rearing, by going into the hive and grafting, leaving a colony queenless. So I don't take the queen away, but you kind of hide her in a pheromone blocking board. So you split a hive into two, put a pheromone blocking board in between. You have the queen down here. She's being looked after. She's fine. But the bees above think that they're queenless. And so you take some eggs from another colony that you like the genetics of, good queen, non-aggressive, good wax and honey producers. You graft those eggs, put them into little cups, put those cups into that hive, top, and those bees will go, oh wow, amazing, because we're queenless and now we've got eggs. So they will draw down queen cells. So they maybe will draw you 10 or 12 queens. They'll make those eggs into queens, and then you can take those queens and grow them in an incubator and end up with queen bees that you can then use to increase the amount of hives that you have. Jeez. It sounds easy. It's the fucking hardest thing.
No, it sounds.
So hard. It's like a tiny game of operation. You see, getting the grafting tool into that, have you seen the cell of a?
Yeah, it's tiny.
And the little egg. Well, it's a larva. It's a 1-day-old larva, 3-day-old egg. It's like a tiny grain of rice, and you pick it up on a little Chinese grafting tool and then transplant it into a cup without squashing it. And it's the hardest thing. So I did it the year before last, and I had a really good year at it. But I maybe got in the whole year, maybe the whole season, I grew maybe 20 odd queens, but not all of them survive and not all of them mate and all the rest of it. So I maybe got an additional 5 colonies, but it was hours and hours and hours of grafting and checking and splitting and pheromone boarding, and it was a lot of work. I'm going to do it again this year. It's really good fun.
It's fascinating. And the honey then?
Yeah.
So the honey, are there different types of honey? Do we have good British honey?
We do. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of nonsense out there. I mean, there's no such thing as organic British honey because there's no farms. Or to be able to be organic, you have to have a certain acreage around that is a certain % of organic crops. And I am 99.9% sure, unless things have changed recently, that there's no honey producer in the UK that's able to, because bees themselves don't just go to organic. So if you live in an organic farm and you've got everything's organic, that's amazing, and you've got your hive in the middle of your organic farm, that bee is going to go to the nearest puddle and drink out of it, and it's going to pollinate your neighbour's crops that have got all sorts of crap on them. And so the bees themselves, you can't kind of just keep them. So it's like a certain amount of miles. Everything has to be organic around it. So there's that aspect of it. There's the aspect of the honey in the supermarkets. Anything, in my opinion, anything on the side label that says a blend of EU and non-EU honeys is just crap, because the non-EU honey part is honey from Southeast Asia that has passed. So there's more honey produced, I think, from Malaysia, I think it's Malaysia, than is actually possible with the amount of bees they have. So it's split at the ports with different syrups, like rapes. What's it called?
Oil, is it?
It's called a lot of it's high fructose corn syrup. It used to be like other sugar syrups, like cane syrup. I can't remember the names of the syrups, but sugar syrups. But now most of it's just high fructose corn syrup. It's the crappiest crap.
What's a good honey to buy then? Like, is the Holland and Barrett Manuka?
I have heard, and I don't know, but I've heard that like Manuka is one of those kind of heavily messed up.
Oh, okay. Like it's sold as like the gold standard, but.
And I think if you're paying a lot of money for your Manuka, then possibly. And not that I want to slag off Holland and Barrett, but it's a little bit commercial, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's amazing Manuka, and it's the UMF factor. I think there's 2 different types of factors.
There's a grade,
like, as you go higher. And I mean, it's used to treat people with cancer and things like that. So it's an amazing thing. But like, how do you know you're buying the good stuff? They sell Manuka honey in Aldi and Lidl for like 2 or 3 quid.
Yeah.
And that is just rubbish. So I think, for me, honey by itself, no matter where it's from, is going to have proper honey, actual real honey from a beekeeper by itself, no matter where it's from, is going to have medicinal properties because it contains the plant power. So wildflower honey that you get in the summer, like a mixture, it's going to be really good for all sorts of stuff, including, your gut health and hay fever and things like that from your local area.
But they say like my dad's got really bad hay fever, and they do say local honey to you is the best for you.
It totally is, yeah, because you're having an allergic reaction to the local pollen. So if you eat the local pollen, then you're going to build up a resistance to it. But the problem is, and we have this conversation a lot in the shop, you need to start doing it like in February time. There's no point
when your eyes
people are
streaming,
like,
you're like,
can you have any honey? And they can't see, and their nose, and I'm like, you might just go and get an antihistamine, mate, because you're too late for the honey. Do you know what I mean?
Start February time.
Start of the year. Buy your summer honey at honey harvest time, because there's a shortage of it at this time of year. So buy your honey in August, September that you're going to need for your hay fever. And then start it at the start of the year. Take a spoonful a day.
And is it true honey never goes off?
It's true. Honey doesn't go off. No, honey doesn't go off. I think they found it in Tutankhamun. They found everything in his tomb, though, haven't they? Like the amount of things I've heard.
Kleptomaniac.
Yeah. What was he doing? But apparently they found honey in Tutankhamun's tomb that was still. Yeah, but we do have to put. You are liable to put a liable's not the word, but you should put a best before date on your honey. I think they gave it like, I don't know, is it 5 years or a year? I don't sell honey in the jars. I have a local beekeeper. He supplies me with the honey that we sell in the shop, and we sell tons of it. All of my honey goes into the products, so I don't get enough to actually jar. Like I say, honey, especially in our climate, especially in Northern Ireland, I mean, it's a tough industry. It's like I don't want to liken it to, dairy or meat production, but, it's you're not guaranteed. I think if you were in a wonderful place like, sort of Bulgaria or Poland or any of those kind of climates where they get a rough winter but a really long good summer, then you would get a lot more. But we kind of, the last 2 years have been particularly crap. So we don't sell it, but one of the ones we do sell a lot of from our local supplier is ivy honey. We get loads of ivy in Northern Ireland, and it's a honey that the bees collect in autumn because the ivy plant blooms at the end of the summer, and the bees go mad for it because it's kind of the last forage they have. So they collect it in bucket loads, and you can actually, it's such a strong honey. It's very, very thick and very hard, so it's not like you can't eat it off the spoon, but in the winter time it would become very, very hard, and it would be kind of even hard to scoop. But it's a very strong smelling honey. It's very white, But whenever you walk towards the hives in kind of September, October time, you can actually smell it coming out of the hive. But the problem is that the bees can't eat it. So because it's so thick and like whenever it comes out of the ivy plant, it's liquid, and they carry it back to the hive. And do you know how honey's made though?
No, and do bees eat their own honey?
So, so they would collect, so if we're talking about ivy honey, so they would collect the nectar, or nectar from any plant, and they put it in their honey stomach. They bring it back to the hive and they regurgitate it. So there's some brands out there that call it bee bulk, like bee sick. There's some honey brands out there that call themselves bee bulk, which is very random. But they regurgitate the honey and they give it to one of the bees because they have different jobs depending on their age. So one of the bees whose job it will be to put the honey in the cell. So that bee will put the honey or the nectar, put the nectar into the cell. And then another worker bee's job will be to flap their wings at the cell, and that dehydrates the nectar and turns it from 80% water, 20% sugar, and they dehydrate it until it is 80% sugar, 20% water, and then whenever it is exactly that, they cap that cell over with a bit of beeswax to say that's finished, that's completed. They move on to the next cell. And they don't mix nectars either. So if they went to a big patch of flowers, so if the forager bee was like, oh lads, or ladies, there's a big patch of flowers here, let's go and forage, they'll go to all of the specific same types of flower and collect all that nectar first and bring it back and get it put in the cell, so that each cell, on a frame of honey, there'll be hundreds of cells and there'll be like loads of different types of nectar, but each cell will only be one specific type. They don't mix it within the cell. Yeah.
I mean, that's just mind-blowing.
Yeah. They're so smart. I don't know. It's hard to fathom. How did they become so intelligent?
But then that makes it even more obvious that what they produce is only good for humans in
Absolutely.
every way, shape or form, whether it's applying it to your skin or...
It is. I mean, we've helped so many people with their skin, and honey is just, and all of the other ingredients, and staying away from all of the crap that's in the shops and that. But like, I know that whenever I do anything about honey, we always kind of get like a negative, and I understand that like and I used to be a vegan, but many years ago, and I kind of understand like, and certainly from things I've said today, that some of the beekeeping practices mightn't sit well with anybody who is like, concerned about the welfare and things like that. But I think there's been a more of a movement from the vegan community to help, I call them vegans, to help beekeepers who are ethical and who do look after the bees, because without beekeepers out there keeping bees, that we would have a massive pollination issue, because most of the bees, there's very few feral colonies. Most of the bees out there pollinating, and honeybees pollinate in the largest volume, quickest, so they're the most efficient pollinators, although wasps and birds and ants and bats and all sorts of other insects and animals pollinate as well. But honeybees are the most efficient. But without beekeepers keeping honeybees, that we would have, like, our crop levels would like plummet. So we are needed.
What traditionally would happen to the honey if we didn't touch it?
So I think, like, I can only talk about our climate and what my bees would do. So in a hive, in a rural or in a wild hive, they will create like almost like the Winnie the Pooh side, like a sort of oval kind of shaped nest. But in a beekeeper's hive, it's like boxes, unless it's a top bar hive. But no, normally it's boxes. So you've got the brood box where the colony live, and then the beekeeper then puts on a queen excluder, because you don't want the queen going up into the honey, because she'll lay eggs up there, and that did happen to us. That's just a mess. So you don't want that to happen. So you put a queen excluder on, and then you set what's known as the honey supers on top of that, which are boxes with, I think it's 11 frames of super frames. So they're kind of half-sized frames. So if you were to leave all those super boxes on, so just, I mean, what most beekeepers do is they put a couple of boxes on, remove them once they're full, and put a couple of more boxes on. Some beekeepers will stack them right up. You maybe have 10 or 12 boxes on top of the hive. But most people put on a few, take them off, and replace them. So if you were to leave those in the winter time, the bees will cluster. At this time of year, they're kind of clustered around the queen, keeping the queen warm, keeping the hive at the right temperature, and feeding whenever they need. But they only come out of the cluster for very short spurts to go up and feed. So they're never going to go up to the top of the box.
Got you.
Because it's going to be too cold up there. So I don't think, I think it would be wasted, which is why if you've got honey on the hive, you take some off. But like, we put feed on for the bees, but like we were looking yesterday, the day before, and our bees have taken some of the feed, but they've still got, we leave them with honey.
Yeah.
So we make sure that they've got enough honey in the hive, and then we would keep frames of honey back, and we would put some frames of honey in whenever. You can't really open the hive in the colder weather, but whenever the weather's a little bit milder, you can maybe crack it open, put another frame of honey in, and make sure that they've got fondant feed on. But we leave frames in, and we don't take all the honey. We're actually quite lazy with that. Sometimes we get to the end of September, October time, we're like, we really need to take some of this honey off because we haven't done it yet. And we tend to leave the summer honey on for as long as possible, like I said, maybe until the autumn time, instead of taking it as soon as it comes in. Okay. Some beekeepers will even take a frame. Oh, there's a filled frame, let's put an empty frame back in again and take that filled frame away. But we don't really do that. We kind of just leave them to do it and take whatever we need then in September, October, but leave them with some. So in answer to your question, they wouldn't eat it all.
That's so fascinating.
They wouldn't be able to get to it. And then the nectar would solidify as well. So it would become too, especially with our thick nectar. We've got rape seed honey as well, which is a very, very thick honey, and it's very hard for the bees to eat too. So it just depends.
Incredible. And out of your, so you've got a stall and your online shop as well. So the passion has led from obviously producing it to then the products that you sell.
Yeah.
And you've bought some of those.
Yeah,
Thank you for me. What's the lead seller, and what do you have people that come in the shop will buy a product of yours, see a massive difference? I'm guessing that's what keeps you doing what you're doing, because you see how helpful it could be, and it's a natural thing.
Yeah, I think so. Initially, it was like, oh, it healed my acne, and I don't have spots anymore. And then I made this, I made this goat's milk soap once because I just fancied making it. I thought that would be a good product to have. And my customers started telling me that it helped them with their eczema. I've never been an eczema sufferer, so I wouldn't have known. But my customers were like, I have struggled with eczema. I've got eczema in my legs, and I use your goat's milk soap and your Beekeeper's Intense Skin Balm, and it's all gone. So, I mean, this has been over 6 years. So, we stopped paying for like paid ads on social media, and we stopped doing that kind of thing, because really what was happening and how our customers were finding out about us was just word of mouth. Mummies in the playground talking about, oh, this helped my son's eczema or psoriasis. So most of our customer base are people who are experiencing skin issues, and we always are like we're not medically trained. Always ask speak to your doctor first, and all of that jazz. But what we have found, because it's just obvious, it's plain as the nose in your face, that if they stop using detergents, which sound horrific but are in most lathering products in the supermarket, marketed for all age groups, if they stop using detergents.
When you say detergents, because what comes to my mind is clothing detergents, but you want about that as well?
I'm talking about
soaps and
surfactants and detergents that are in lathering skincare products, so facial washes, shower gels. There's lots of different ingredients that are used in those products to create a lather and a foam and a scent, and they cause irritation to the skin. So once they stop using those, but like clothing detergents is like anybody that's got sensitive skin, I'd always say make sure you're using like, I don't know, Fairy Non-Bio or something like that. But clothing detergents themselves, from what we've seen with our customers, aren't the root cause. And we always say to our customers, look, I can only tell you what I would do in your situation.
Yeah.
But if you've been going to the doctor for 6 months and they've been prescribing you with hydrocortisone cream and it's not making any difference, in fact, it's making it worse, because whenever you stop using the hydrocortisone, it comes back with a vengeance. And I would actually not do that for a couple of weeks, put that to one side, try using this product, wash with this head to toe. Shampoos are full of detergents as well, so we sell tons of shampoo bars. A lot of people have got issues with their scalp, in their ears, back of the neck, down the back and the soles of the feet, and more often than not that's caused by shampoo. So we swap them to a shampoo bar, we give them one of our, we always talk about the goat's milk soap, but actually any of our soaps, goat's milk would be the best for that kind of skin, but any of our soaps are going to do the trick. And do that for a couple of weeks, and they often come back within a few days and are like, I can't believe it, but it's all gone. I'm like, well, I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to medical school, but would that be eczema then? If that's disappeared in a few days because you've stopped using detergents, then what is that then that you have? Is that eczema, or is that just that your skin can't tolerate detergents? That is more often than not.
But it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? When you look on the back of these products that we're buying from supermarkets, I don't recognise half the things in them. But if I was to buy a product from you and turn it over, there's going to be things like like all things that I recognise: aloe vera, goat's milk, honey. It makes perfect sense, but we're still shocked.
We are, and we have to write it in this. It's called INCI or INCI format. So it's like the international I can't say it, culture, but it's basically this international language for ingredients, so that no matter where you are in the world, you know that Cocos Nicifera is coconut oil. So
okay.
So it's all written. So my labels will look as illegible.
Right, interesting. Okay.
I do tend to try and put the English name if there's enough room in there as well, so you can kind of decipher it. But I always say to my customers, like, get the product that you're using and what they're calling out in the front label. So, a shower gel, right? It'll say, even, I don't want to say names, but there's a shower gel out there that people talk about day and daily in my shop, and its main thing is it's pH balanced and it's suitable for sensitive skin. Rhymes with Manex, right? And
okay,
right.
Don't sue us.
Don't sue us. No, but in general, this goes for everything. Look at what they're telling you is on the front label. What they want you to read. I've got, I don't know, rose hip oil, or I've got vitamin E. Vitamin E is always the one. I've got this, I've got that. I've got loads of things in here that is going to be so good for your skin. Turn it round. Google what the INCI name is for that oil or that, herb or whatever. Get that name, turn it round the back, and you will always find them at the very end of the ingredients list after the word perfume. Perfume is probably in there at 2 or 3%. The things that they're telling you that product is full of
is actually a very small amount.
Is a very small amount, and it's probably below perfume, which tells you that it's in at less than 2%.
Shit.
So most of that product is probably water, surfactants, preservatives, and fragrance. And that's really what you're buying. I think moisturising products aren't as bad because, they haven't got the surfactants and the lathering agents and stuff, which is the thing that kind of causes the irritation. But what we get a lot of is, especially teenagers, come to us and they are using facial washes. And it's the first thing. And people come into my shop and they're like, I've heard that you can help with my skin. And they've maybe heard my story or whatever. And the first thing, they want me to give them something to put on. And I'm like, what are you washing your face in? And they'll be like, well, it's not that. It's like, I've got spot. I'm like, I know, but what are you washing your face? And they'll say the name of the facial wash. And I'll be like, well, okay, well, so that, your skin to me looks dehydrated. So that facial wash is going on your face. So only for a short time. But those surfactants, those lathering agents are annoying your skin. It's dehydrating it. You're throwing the kitchen sink at your skin because you're so stressed out about it. But your sebaceous glands are still producing oil, and it's coming up and it's hitting that dry layer. And because of the dryness on the surface, that is what's giving you the kind of spots that are kind of built up, the irritation, the lumps. Do you ever remember the spots you used to get
underneath the skin, yeah.
Take months to come through. That's all because the skin's it's dehydrated. So once you put moisturising, nourishing, and I often have to explain, listen, the Beekeeper's Intense Skin Balm is going to feel like Vaseline. It's going to feel like you're putting oil on your skin. It's not going to feel like what you want to. You want to dry your skin out to stop the spots from coming through. But believe me, trust the process. Put this on your skin at night time, only a little bit goes a long way. Let it soak in. The honey will draw all of that inflammation, infection, the spots, bring it all out. It'll help with the redness. In a couple of weeks' time, you will feel like, listen, they're probably 16, 17, maybe 14 or whatever. And you're like, you're going to get spots. It's part of life.
Yeah.
But if your spots can be quicker, less annoying, less patchy, a few spots here and there, and your skin's dewy and healthy, you know, that is what we get mostly from the use of our products, and it's because of the like ultra hydration and the natural ingredients. But it's so hard to find products out there in the supermarket and the pharmacies that are like that. They don't really exist.
Crazy. I think it's fascinating. I think your story of this natural world of sales and then finding your passion and then having a problem. And, but then finding it came from a problem. There's a solution, but a solution that wasn't just like say fleeting. It was something that you could do good with. Is incredible.
It's linked right back. Like I get to spend time with my dad at the bees. In work, you know, we've been able to create enough of a turnover to have a job there for Brooke that she enjoys and she's good at, and she runs that side of the business, the finance side. As I told you before, there has to be a responsible adult.
I love how that's her.
You know, it's really has like it's like all, I feel like all those things that you may want to call adversities or whatever have really just played in to me being able to function now, to be able to do it. And certainly, like we touched on before, whenever we were talking earlier about the superpower of, I mean, ADHD, but for me, bipolar. If I didn't have bipolar disorder, which seems, I mean, do you know what drives me insane? I watch these programs, so these like series on TV, and the crazy person that has done they're always bipolar. I'm like, would you leave the bipolar people alone? Like, oh, she's got issues. Yeah, she's bipolar. Okay. Can you not pick another mental disorder? Why are they always bipolar? Isn't it? I watched something recently and they were bipolar. They're always bipolar. It's like, oh, she's bipolar. Like, we've just come from calling, what did it used to be called? Manic depression, it used to be called. That was the name before bipolar.
This is a horrible, really thing.
It sounds horrible. It is horrible. It is. There's horrible sides to it, and certainly it's a spectrum like autism. It definitely is. And I am not as high up in the spectrum as some people are, and I thank God for that, because, you know, the hypo,
pretty dark place,
the hypo side of it it's difficult, and it has led me to dark places. Before my medication, before I was diagnosed, whenever I was diagnosed, it was like the lights had been switched on. It's like, thank you God, I have got, you know, it's no longer this depression that I was being sort of medicated for. And life kind of began properly at that point. I was able to go, okay, so all of that weirdness, that's what that was. Like that time I cut up all my clothes and shit like that. And that was all that was a bipolar episode. I just thought I was mental. Well, I am actually really mental. But if I didn't have that creative side, that superpower of hyper focus, you know, intensely becoming, you know, really kind of, I don't know, hone in on one particular thing and overthink it and be the creative kind of energy that goes behind that, I wouldn't be able to do I wouldn't be able to have created so many products. I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't have the energy to do it. I wouldn't want to.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know if I was saying it just to make myself feel better, but now that I've come to terms with, you know, the fact that I probably do have ADHD, and I look at normal people, and I'm like, how sad.
Yeah.
That they don't get to, I know it's highs and lows, but the more people I meet that have similar ways of doing things as me and, you know, do things creatively and do lots of different things, I'm like, they're the cool people. They're the people with the great stories. And yes, the linear growth to success might not be that very thing of linear, but by God, it's a better story than than those that are sane.
Boring would it be to make a to-do list and actually just
do it
methodically go down it and do it? I don't know.
But I feel like I'll retract that. I'll have to say we need those people. I've had to marry one of
We
those.
need responsible people. Yes, my other half, absolutely.
Yeah, we need
Polar
we need
opposite
the other
that way.
side for for
We can't
great-
all be like, if we lived in a world full of ADHD bipolar people, it would just be mayhem, absolute mayhem.
Well, listen, I want to say thank you so much. You are incredibly inspiring. I love what you do. You've definitely dared and won. And I am so excited to see where things go next. But I know it's just going to be a lifetime of helping people.
Oh, thank
and,
you. Hopefully.
Definitely.
I've really